All right, welcome back to another edition of the Franklin Community High School Career Exploration Project. And I am joined today by Shawn Curran, and he is an architect, the owner, operator, and architect at Curran Architecture. So, Shawn, thank you so much for joining me today.
Sure, happy to be here.
Yeah. So, why don't you just tell me a little bit about your current role and what anything in the past that you had that may have led you there, and how you kind of got there.
All right, sure. So I am the president of Curran Architecture. Started the company 18 and a half years ago. And so started out as a one-man shop, just me working out of the house. And we've grown the business to, we've got 14 people in the office now, and are real happy with kind of how things are going. So currently, we're pretty busy right now. There's a lot of stuff going on from a construction standpoint, so it's going pretty well. I guess in terms of kind of previous roles or previous entities or anything like that. So I'd worked for a couple other architecture firms. Went to college, graduated, worked for a couple different firms, and kind of. You learn by doing in this profession, definitely a lot more than just going to school. And so kind of learned the ins and outs of architecture from those firms. And the last firm I was at, I was managing the office as well. So that gave me kind of a little bit more of the experience of kind of what it takes to kind of run the business, not just to kind of do architecture or do design work.
Right. Now you went to college. What kind of education? Where'd you go, and what was your degree in?
So I went to Ball State up in Muncie. So chirp chirp, and have a Bachelor of Architecture degree, which is a 5-year bachelor's degree. And they have when I went, that was the method you went to go to school, was a Bachelor of Architecture 5-year degree, and that 5th year allows you to become a licensed architect, and that includes within that 5 years you do an internship where you're working in an architecture firm, and that is kind of what helps you to obviously then go through the process of becoming licensed. The architecture in general, the programs have changed a little bit different, depending on where you go. Some universities have 5-year bachelor's program. Some have 6-year program you end up with a master's degree, where it's kind of a 4 years for your undergrad and then 2 years for your master's. Mm-hmm. That's between those two. That's predominantly kind of what most schools offer. Ball State actually, I think, technically offers both programs now, either the 4+2 or the 5-year bachelor. So depending on which route you wanted to go, you could do either, I think.
Yeah. So what led you to become an architect? I mean, was it something that you've known for a long time? You knew when you were a kid you wanted to do that, or just
it's interestingly, I don't have anybody in my family that is an architect or even was in construction or anything like that. So it's not like a family thing or anything like that. I've always liked building things and creating things, and as I would imagine a lot of architects, when you're a kid, you start playing with Legos and things like that. And so I remember getting Lego kits, when I was real little, and this was when Legos first started coming out. And I'm sure that at some point someone said, "Oh, you like building things? You should be an architect." Because I don't remember a specific moment where I thought in my mind, I'm going to be an architect. I just always remember that's what I was going to be. So I think that it probably was just ingrained in me early that's because I like creating things and building things, that's what I should do. And so I have always kind of wanted to do it, I guess.
Yeah, that's interesting. It's just like this. I guess what I'm supposed to.
It's just ingrained in me, and when I was looking at colleges when I was in high school and, started going through that process of looking at colleges and things like that, it was never even or even going through, doing those career aptitude things in school where you kind of go through and answer the questions and it tells you what you'd be good at or things like that. I don't ever remember ever thinking, oh, I'm going to be this or I'm going to be that because of this. It was always just, I'm going to be an architect. So,
and there you are. So
yeah, and here I am.
you didn't need any of those aptitudes.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, one of the things I think of, and I'm assuming this is way off, but is you'd have to be somewhat of a good artist to be an architect. Is that accurate?
I would say it doesn't hurt for sure, but it's not a requirement. I would say that and when I was in high school, I didn't take a lot of art classes. I took, when I was in high school, the thought was I need to take drafting classes to be an architect. So I took the drafting classes. But looking back on it, if I would have, looking back, if I was going to go back to high school now and do it, I would take, in addition to those drafting classes, I would take art classes because I never really took those classes, and I feel like I kind of missed out a little bit because I didn't do that. It's definitely not a requirement, but I think that it definitely would have benefited me. So I think, to some extent, it's an equal benefit to taking those drafting type of classes as it is to taking those art classes. I would definitely say kind of on an even playing field.
Gotcha. Now, if someone's coming in to be an architect, and you can see, what kind of personality do you think would be a good fit for architecture? Likes, dislikes, things like that. And what kind of personality, would you think maybe you wouldn't be as successful for?
I think, generally speaking, an architect's job is to solve problems. When you get down to it, our job is to fix someone else's problem. And we fix that problem by designing an office for them, or designing a building for them, or renovating a space for them because their existing space is too small, or it's too big, or it's outdated, or whatever the case may be. Our job is to fix their problem. So someone that has good problem solving skills and is able to kind of understand and process when someone gives you a problem, is able to kind of process that in multiple ways. It's not, architecture is definitely not a linear solution. It's not A, B, C. Sometimes it's A, C, B, D. So you got to be able to kind of think in that manner. And it's also very spatial. Obviously, we live in a 3D world, and so being able to think spatially in things like, how tall is the space, or how wide is the space, or how is that going to impact the impact for a user of that space. So I think someone that understands spatial relationships would benefit from that as well. And obviously, someone that works well as a team. We have to collaborate with not only with our client, but also with the contractor and with engineers and with clients consulting their own suppliers and things like that. So you have to be able to work with lots of different people and be able to get along well, play well in the sandbox together. So it's important for that as well. I think there are roles in architecture for people that aren't that way, that are a little more introverted and maybe aren't as outgoing and aren't as social in terms of that type of a thing. That person might be more suited towards roles that would occupy primarily within the office, not out meeting with clients or things like that, but still could be a role in architecture. So even if they're interested in architecture, but they're like, I don't want to have anything to do with going and meeting with clients because I don't like meeting with people. Just put me at a desk and let me work. There's a role for people like that as well. It's just those people understanding kind of where they fit in, where they would fit in the profession.
They just don't own their own company.
Yeah, probably not. Interestingly, I was very introverted and very quiet, and would never have said that I was going to own my own firm. And here I am. I've got my own firm. So you kind of learn to be not introverted in some cases in those ways.
Right. Yeah. Now, what are some of the projects that your company is working on right now?
So right now, in general, so our firm is what I like to call a generalist. So we do a little bit of everything. We don't specialize in schools or fire stations or hospitals or restaurants, or we do a little bit of everything. So we do we do restaurants, we do offices, we do, dentist offices, we do some hotel work, we do early childhood care, daycare center type stuff. We do industrial buildings, big warehouse types of things. Those are really popular right now. We're doing a ton of those. You probably see them, driving down I-65 or, things like that. We've got a ton of that stuff going on right now. And we've got some stuff in Whiteland and Greenwood. And so we've got a lot of projects kind of right off I-65 down on the south side that you guys probably would drive by if you ever are going 65 either north towards Indy or south towards Columbus. You probably would see some of our stuff.
All right. Now you own your own company.
Yep.
So obviously you're all in on the architecture stuff.
Oh yeah.
You've done it for many years. You love it. It's great.
I can't quit and go someplace else.
That's right. But you can't tell me. So you're going to tell me some things you like, some of the pros, but there are some cons. So don't tell me there aren't. So what are some of the cons of your job?
So, for me, being the owner, for me, the con, and I don't know that I would say it's necessarily a con. I would say it's a responsibility. Is that and I mentioned that we've got 14 people in our office, so that's it's a pretty good size staff in terms of architecture firms. So it's that responsibility of those are people's livelihoods that I'm kind of responsible for in terms of making sure that we get enough work, making sure that everybody is paid well, that they have benefits that they can live off of, that we take care of them. And so that's a pretty big responsibility. And I wouldn't necessarily say it's a con, but it's definitely one of those things that kind of weighs on you, that you kind of think, especially when markets go down and business isn't as busy, and you're kind of looking out, kind of projecting forward of, do we have enough work to keep people busy and things like that. And it's how do you do that? And it's my responsibility to make sure that those people are that we're keeping them busy so that I can keep paying them. And so, that's can be a challenge. So I would say that's, like I said, not necessarily a con, but it's something that you kind of weighs on you a little bit to make sure that you take care of, it's more like a family. So you take care of your family. I think
it's different when it's just a one-man show.
Exactly.
14 people there.
Yep, exactly. I would say the only thing that I would say is the con aspect of it is kind of some of the more office-y type of tasks, the stuff that isn't related specifically to architecture. It's it's the paying the bills, it's the handling kind of the processing of those types of things, and making sure that our insurance stuff is up to date, and making sure that our licenses are current and things like that. And fortunately, now that we've got 14 people in the office, we've got staff we've got an office manager that kind of handles some of that stuff. So even some of that stuff doesn't necessarily sit on my plate, but it's what I'd like the most is being able to work with clients and helping solve those problems. That's why I got into the profession. So when I'm not doing that, anytime I'm not able to do that because something else gets in the way of that, that's kind of a con, I guess, in my mind.
Yeah. So what do you love most about it?
It's the solving the problems. It's, I had mentioned that before, that's really what an architect's job is, solving problems. And for me, it's that. It's not necessarily even what the building looks like at the end of the day. It's, did we solve the client's problem? So for me, that's where I get the greatest satisfaction is in doing that. And for me, I get people that ask similar question to that is, do you have a favorite project? What's your favorite building that you designed, or something like that. And for me, it'd be like saying, do you have a favorite kid? And I can say that because I only have one, but I couldn't say that I have a favorite. There might be a favorite project that I'm working on right now, or a project that we just finished that I'd say, well, I really liked working on that project, but it isn't always necessarily because it had the coolest design or something like that. Sometimes it's because the client was the most fun to work with, or because the it was the biggest challenge, and we solved it in a way that was successful for the client. For me, the favorite type of project is the client that's never done this before. They've never hired an architect before. They've never gone through that process of building a building or anything like that, because for them, the entire process is new.
Mm-hmm.
And to help walk them through that process and help them understand why their little sketch that they drew of how they think they want their office to lay out doesn't work in reality. It might work on paper, but in reality, that hallway is a foot wide, and it can't be a foot wide, or that corridor is 300 feet long and there's no door at the end of it, so that won't work. It's those types of things that helping them, educate them through the process of why things are what they are, and what building codes are, and
Sir, you cannot have an indoor pool on the third floor of your building.
Yes, you can, but it's going to be real expensive. And that's not in your budget. And so then kind of helping walk them through that process, and seeing the project through their eyes, and seeing it go through construction. And then at the end of the project, when they move in, and hearing them and their employees, or hearing them and their clients that come into their office like the space, and them say that it works for them and it's successful for them, and all of that is where I get the greatest satisfaction, is just knowing that we were successful for them and for their business. That's where I find the most joy out of it, I guess, because then at the end of the day, if they're happy, and then 2-3 years down the road, they call and say, hey, that project was great. We need to expand because our business has been so good. Can you help us with an expansion? Or I get a call out of the blue someday from someone that says, hey, John called me and said that you did a great job on his project. I've got a similar project. Can we hire you to do our project? Because I heard that that you did a great job with him. It's that, our clients do our marketing. And if we do a good job for our clients and they're happy at the end of the day, they're the ones that are going to, they're going to be the ones touting us. And
right.
I don't have to go door to door knocking on doors telling people to hire us.
Yeah. You let them do it for you.
Exactly.
So we talked a little bit earlier about how you wish you would have taken art classes, and you took the drafting classes. What are some ways, let's say a high schooler wants to become an architect, what are some ways that they could prepare for this right now?
I would say it's those two things: taking art classes, taking the drafting classes. I would start looking at colleges early. This is not a profession that you apply to your senior year and get in. Most architecture programs have limited enrollment. Mm-hmm. And if you don't get in right away, then you're taking a year of general studies classes until you can apply again and hopefully get in. So I would say, definitely try and apply as early as you can. Find out what requirements they've got in those schools, because most of them have separate applications for the architecture programs. And so if there's a separate application, find out what that application is. Find out what you need to do. Do you need letters of recommendation? Do you need to show a portfolio? Some of them require portfolios now. So here's my art classes that I took, and here's my drafting classes that I took. What are those types of things that they're asking for, so that you can start to find out what you need to put together, because you aren't going to be able to do that your senior year if you haven't taken any of those classes. All of a sudden, I need to take an art class and a drafting class, and I'm halfway through my senior year. It just isn't going to happen at that point. So I would say figure that out, as early as you can. Tour the campuses if you have an opportunity to do that. There aren't, it's not like going into accounting or education or any of those professions where, generally speaking, any college has a program. It's limited. Ball State and Notre Dame are the only two colleges that have bachelor's programs. So if you want to stay in the state of Indiana, you're limited to those two. Obviously, Notre Dame's pretty expensive. If you're willing to go out of state, there's Miami of Ohio, there's Ohio State, there's lots of Midwestern schools. Mm-hmm. So if you're willing to branch out, there's opportunities out there. Obviously, I'm a little partial to Ball State's program because I went there. But there's a lot of good schools out there. So I would definitely say look into the programs as early as you can. Try and get a architecture specific campus tour. Don't just do a general tour. You want to talk to the College of Architecture ask them if you can do a tour of their building, of their program, talk to the professors, talk to their students, find out everything you can.
Yeah, that's something that I think people might not think of is their actual school that they're going to is seeing, can we get this specific tour for this area? So that's some very good advice there.
Yep.
All right, Shawn, you've been very gracious with your time. I'm going to get you out of here on this last one. No pressure, just some general advice for high school students. What you wish you know. You said you've got a child, an only child. So what you would tell your child about high school?
I think I would say challenge yourself and kind of push yourself outside of your comfort zone. Try and find something that you like, and try and pursue that to the greatest extent you can, and try different things. Because when I was in school, I didn't have someone encouraging me to do, try out for a bunch of different sports, or do all of these things, or do these things, or and I would say, try all of that stuff. Nobody said, hey, you should take art classes if you're going to go into architecture. Try as many different things as you can, because I think you'll be surprised at what you find. Something you may not think you like, that you may find you excel at. And obviously a great opportunity to meet new people if you're in classes that you don't normally take, or if you participate in a club that you wouldn't normally participate in. If it's outside of your circle of friends that you normally hang out with, or you normally have classes with, then it's an opportunity for you to meet new people. Those are things that I didn't do because as I mentioned, I was pretty shy and introverted and quiet, and doing those types of things would have petrified me in high school. But looking back on it, I wish I would have done those types of things and would have had those opportunities. And I think I would have been better off in the long run doing them.
Yeah, that's great advice. Just kind of push yourself. And it's something that's hard to do when you're 16, 17, 18 years old. But once you start that, getting out of your comfort zone, then that's a great place to go back to.
Yep.
So, thank you so much, Shawn, for your time. We really appreciate it. Once again, Shawn Curran, architect and owner of Curran Architecture. Thank you again.
Yep. Thank you. Appreciate it.